founded the organization in the year 2000, it was in response to an arrest of 19 workers who were working in the casino not far from where we're at here in Gulfport at what used to be the Grand Casino. And they were food service workers and housekeepers who were undocumented and hired by a contractor, and they had stood up for their rights on the job and protesting the poor pay that they were getting and the horrible housing conditions. And the contractor wanted to get rid of them, so he set them up for an arrest, and they were detained and deported over a period of time. Along with that, the schools in Mississippi were refusing to enroll children, undocumented children in the state. And those two incidents, one in Laurel with the schools and the one in Gulfport with the workers, motivated us to begin the Mississippi Immigrant Rights Alliance, a coalition of unions and churches and civil rights organizations to deal with protecting the rights of immigrants in Mississippi and expanding their rights and getting justice. And up through Katrina, we had been involved in primarily policy and legislative work and dealing with individual issues that immigrant workers had. And we're successful in passing 6 bills in the legislature that expanded rights for immigrant workers, as well as a bill that codified a Supreme Court decision that mandated that all children, regardless of immigrant status, be admitted to schools here in Mississippi. And then when Katrina came, we made a transition from an organization with 2 part-time organizers and mostly volunteers to an organization with a full-time staff. And that's when Victoria Cincha joined our staff and Socorro, and they began dealing with the issues that immigrants faced in the wake of Hurricane Katrina, from evictions that they were successful in thwarting, to making sure that workers were paid the wages that they worked to earn, clearing the debris, doing the blue roofs, and beginning the reconstruction of the Gulf Coast. And together, they and the workers they worked with were able to recover over $1 million in back pay. And that's really began the escalation of our work.
So we were trying to bring together communities from around the Gulf Coast, from around Mississippi, from around the region, to discuss some of the challenges that communities of color in particular face in these economic times, and these times of external as well as internal pressures. And there's often a lot of conversation that has not been had in the community, particularly when we're talking about immigration issues and economic issues that often pit communities of color against each other. So we wanted to address areas of tension, just to start the conversation before we even get into anything deep like immigration. We wanted to be able to say, let's talk about the basics. What causes us not even to be able to talk to each other, not even to be able to look at each other in the eyes. And so there are pre-existing understandings or misunderstandings about culture and about language, some stereotypes and biases that people carry. Put aside everything that you've heard and let's sit across the table. Let's sit in the same group and let's see if you leave that group thinking the same thing that you heard somebody tell you about that ethnicity. So I think we accomplished that. We had a really good turnout from the community. We had some really great speakers, but for the most part, the community was the voice.
What I was expecting was just an opportunity to understand what was going through the minds of many of the individuals that are in the community, many of the individuals that are affiliated with other organizations, and then to be able to get back and be able to express it to the people in Biloxi because a lot of this here are organizations that are affiliated in Jackson, and by this being the very first year of it being down here on the Gulf Coast here in Mississippi, so therefore it's all a learning experience. It's a kind of a reminder. By misfortune, many people in the black community have forgotten a lot of the things that were just a few years ago. The Indians went through it, the Jews went through it. As you look back in world history, any time that there's a dominant factor in charge, the ones that they feel that they're most, what should I say, the people that are the threat to them the most are considered to receive all of that expressed power against them, and it's all based on reverse psychology, and to try to get people to go against one another, even if they have to get them to fight amongst themselves.
I have been a big supporter of Mira since they formed the Mississippi Immigrant Rights Alliance. And I was interested in bridging the relationship between the African American community and the Latino community, and thought coming to this unity conference, there would be an opportunity to do that. You know, part of this is an education process, educating the African American community, which is something I found material, have information now that I can take back to the African American community. There has to be a lot of discussion and dialogue around dispelling the myths, finding some common ground, coming to, I think, an understanding and realization that the Latino struggle, brown people's struggle, is the same as African American struggles inside of the United States. And I think globally, our struggles are the same. So part of this is really, I think, to begin a dialogue with the African American community. You know, you hear the negative stereotypes about the Latino community, you know, families, so many families living in the same house. They come here and they take our jobs. I think those are the kinds of myths that we have to dispel in our community before we can find a common ground.